I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delving into a terrific novel. It is called A Time in Victoria, and it's written by a wonderful author. His name is Mel Reed. This captivating novel takes us on a post-World War II journey of love, hope, and victory as Marcus, a returning warrior, and Victoria, a woman searching for family, navigate their intertwined destinies. Join us as we explore how their powerful story resonates with universal themes of grace, sacrifice, and the triumph of the human spirit. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his remarkable book. The links are below this interview. Mel, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Well, it's good to be with you, Mr. Crawford. I am looking forward to our discussion. I think it's I've written 6 books, and this is probably the one I'm most excited about. It's dynamic. It speaks to the heart. So, thank you.
Absolutely. And you're a experienced writer, but this is your first novel, correct?
Correct.
And what made you decide to change genres and begin writing non-fiction, rather?
Well, I've done a lot of study books, commentary, Bible commentary, mainly focusing on men. I've been in men's ministry for a long time. And really what prompted this was I had a dream probably 30 years ago. And I don't usually remember my dreams, and I rarely dream in color, but this was so vivid. And it was just a very small snippet of the book, but it was I could tell this guy was coming back from fighting. He was a warrior, and he's standing at the top of the hill, and he's looking down at his mom's house, his mom and dad's house. And it's kind of like a Thomas Kincaid painting, if you've ever
Yeah,
seen one of those.
standing there
It's a
with
little
the,
cottage, right?
yeah.
And she's standing at the sink doing dishes, and he's standing there. And the sense I got in the dream was he hadn't seen her in a while.
Mm.
So I woke up and I started writing some some ideas, came up with 3 pages of characters, and then worked on other books while this one just sat on the shelf. And then last year in the emergency room, nobody wants to find themselves there. I really had this thought, Logan. It was about, all right, if I die, this story dies with me.
Mm.
So last year I got diligent and started working on it, and I was very well pleased with the final outcome. And I think the readers will be. I've already gotten some good feedback. So.
Yeah. Well, I love the imagery of your dream to start off with. I mean, coming back from war is a profound experience. You're a former military guy, so you know what it's like to return home after an absence, and it's obviously very profound. I've never experienced that. I was never in the military, but you watch those videos of like dads coming home or husbands coming home, and
Yeah.
it's just heart-wrenching to watch it and to experience it. Let's give the folks at home an overview of the book, just a simple tale of the story. Once upon a time, there was a time for Victoria. You can go into it like that.
Yeah, the idea is, of course, it was a time of restoration and healing for our country after World War II. Victoria is a very mysterious young lady. She was left at an orphanage as a baby and grew up in the orphanage. And her stories go through, and then she met this warrior, Marcus, at a bus station in Youngstown, Ohio. And he was captivated. I mean, he was smitten immediately, and worked up the nerve to talk to her. And they hit it off. They had a great conversation, and their story. And I think if we think that it's unique, it really is, because the story is a story about 2 people finding each other in a world that is just full of chaos and hurt and anger. And it was a needed restoration and a needed relationship. And really, we all have our stories. You would be very familiar if I mentioned the name Paul Temple, I believe, his story, right? So we have stories, and I think what will happen in this book is the readers will relate to the characters, they might even find themselves. I got a note from a young lady the other day. She says, like, I started your book and I can't put it down, but I've got stuff to do. So she said, I'll pick it back up later and finish it. But it is a story of a journey since that chance meeting, and it really wasn't by chance, which you'll find out. A journey from Youngstown, Ohio, across the country to a little place called Salida, Colorado.
Mm.
Now, Salida is a very special place to Marcus. His family's been there generations, and they have a cattle ranch. So it's really a healing story. He rarely goes to sleep without visions of war passing through his head. He needed that. Whenever she held his hand,
Mm.
he felt the peace that he hadn't felt in 3 or 4 years. So the story really talks about their relationship. But in the bus journey, they get on a bus. There's some characters that people will find, like Claude Watkins. He's on a trip to New York and coming back after he's from Kansas, and he invented a little device that made making refrigerators, which were very important after World War II. And he sold the patent and got his first check, and he can take care of his mom and dad in Kansas now.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's some characters woven in there, but the book is really, I think the biggest thing is looking not behind, because sometimes life can be very challenging, and not looking at the things that have happened in our life, but constantly looking forward, because if we keep moving forward, there's some victory there. And Victoria introduces Marcus to a whole new world.
Wonderful. Well, I think every now and then in our lives, we do have a love or a connection with a woman, and that really is transformative in your life. And there's an instant connection. And that seems to be the case for Victoria and Marcus. And it's such a wonderful setting, the era of post-World War II, because I think it just was a romantic setting. I mean, the way people dressed back then, the way people traveled back then. I know life was more difficult than it is today. Not everything was on their cell phone, but it also made
Right.
life a little more interesting as well, right?
Exactly. There's a scene in the book, and this is funny. A lady read the book. She texted me and she said, I saw your movie and I really enjoyed it. And I'm like, wait a minute, it's a book.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
it'd make a fantastic movie
Oh,
because
absolutely. It's
the
very
characters are so
visual.
good. There's a scene where the bus actually breaks down and they end up outside of the bus, away from the other people on a starry night, gazing at the stars. And it's the most peaceful time that Marcus has felt in a long, long time. The very same stars he saw in Italy when he was fighting with General Patton. And the book, it's not a historical work. It refers to historical events. These are fictitious characters, but they're set in a time frame, like you said, that it was a harder time, but it was also a simpler time. And
Exactly.
sometimes we complicate love, we complicate life, we complicate uh, everything that's going on in our lives versus taking the time to be still and really reflect on the goodness that we can experience, not just everything that's our challenge. So there's some adventure. Of course, it's a love story, love of country, love of uh, him and her and him, love of family, which she had never experienced growing up in an orphanage. So it really, I think, brings readers into that overall story that says there is hope.
Yeah.
No matter what I'm facing today, there is hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. And such a great compliment you received that this reader thought she had watched your movie, which means she's caught up in the imagery. She was picturing it in her mind. It means you wrote very visually. And obviously, you have thought about this as a film. And I think it would be a terrific film. Like I said, from the era, from the costuming to the sets to the characters, men were men, women were women back in the post-World War II years, and romance was, something that was very true of heart, which is sometimes lacking today as well. And I think that's all captured in the book. I mean, in many ways, they rescued each other, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you working on a sequel or thinking about a sequel?
Oh, that's funny you should ask. My daughter asked me the same thing, and I had one reader said, "Well, I finished the book. What's next?" Because at the end of this novel, it doesn't say the end. So
Right.
that's all I'm going to say about that. But yeah, I am working on, and it's a time for Amy, Aimee. That if you'll read the book, you'll find that character in Three Children. Oh, all three of them. I wrote the darn thing, and it gets me.
Yeah, yeah,
Three
yeah.
children that were placed after their parents they were in Chicago. Their father worked for Sears, and they were out Christmas shopping. Him and his wife got hit by a train,
Uh,
and these three kids ended up in the very same orphanage that Victoria came from.
wow.
So you'll have to read how they become a family.
Yeah, that very is very, very powerful. And I can see why it chokes you up. In fact, I thought something had gone wrong with our signal when you froze up there for a second.
No,
So I apologize for panicking about that. But no,
no,
that's
something
very, very
something went wrong
powerful.
with my signal. I've always been kind of, my mom told me that I was probably, she had five kids. She was a waitress and raised six kids,
Wow.
eventually on tips.
Hmm.
So whenever I go out to eat, I'll make sure I take care of people. But she
Same
said,
here.
out of all the kids, Mel, you're the most tender. And it's like, Mom, don't tell my friends at school that, please.
Exactly, exactly. My wife calls me a tofu heart. She
Yeah.
like very, very soft-hearted. But that's what makes a great artist also. If you're going to have depth of feeling, if you're going to be an artist, you need depth of feeling, whether you're an actor or a writer or whatever it is, whatever kind of creator you are. And obviously you have it. And that emotion and that depth of feeling is felt in this book as well. It is called A Time for Victoria. It's written by Mel Reed. It is a captivating novel that takes you on a post-World War II journey of love, hope, and victory as Marcus, a returning warrior, and Victoria, a woman searching for family, navigate their intertwined destinies. It's a wonderful read. It'll transport you back in time. You'll wish that men wore suits and fedoras again after reading this book. I almost said watching this film. There you go. It's
Yeah.
contagious. It should be a film. Hollywood, if you're listening, let's turn this one into a movie. Mel, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy person, and hopefully we make an impact in the world.
That would be great. That's all of our best hopes, right? To the folks
Yes.
at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on Spotlight.